We can't tell you who we are or where we live. It's too risky, and we've got to be careful. Really careful. So we don't trust anyone, because if they find us, well, we just won't let them find us. The thing you should know is that everyone is in really big trouble. Yeah, even you. I'm Taylor,
I'm Casey.
and this is the Morphathon.
Yay! Da, 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 da. We don't have a theme song.
We need intro music.
We do. Let's get
But,
some royalty-free music after this.
yeah, royalty free. We'll find some. But yes, welcome to episode 2 of the Morphathon. And I actually don't even remember what book we're reading. Which
We are reading the
The
second
Visitor.
book,
The Visitor. Okay.
Yeah, The Visitor.
The one with the cat on the cover.
Yeah, it's like a 30-year-old woman turning into a cat. These kids are 13.
These kids are
Maybe the authors hadn't exactly decided how old the kids would be, but knowing they're supposed to be 13 makes like some of this series kind of confusing, especially in the early books. Like the assault scene gets extra weird.
Wait, which assault scene?
In this book, the guy who like is like
Oh yeah, hitting on her on
like
the
a
street.
rapist, yeah,
Yeah.
turns into an elephant. That's an awesome scene. I know it's cheesy and stupid,
Yeah,
but
yeah. It was great.
mhm.
Um,
But
Jeez.
man, this book, I forgot
Yeah, she would have been
how
like
little.
4 foot nothing at that point.
Yeah, it's just and like I've said, this is my favorite series ever. I
You
did
have mentioned
forget
that.
how much of a hot mess the first few books are.
Yeah, okay, because let's talk about that. In the
The
first book, I was talking about how well it was paced. And how everything was like leading into the next part.
and in this one, there's like 3 chapters about trying to catch a cat.
Yeah, and it all kind of meandered around. The only times it found itself was when it was getting into animal facts.
Oh yeah, no.
And
See,
your primer of K.A. Applegate really just wanted to write about animals, and I'm like, this makes a lot more sense now.
it does. She is really good at making me want to be a cat.
Yeah, okay.
But no, I think I totally agree. In the first, I would say it really finds itself in book 6. Book 8 is really good too.
Okay, I think we are gonna
I
say
think it's
16. I'm like, Casey, that's a long time.
no, book 6 has some great moments. I think it's still a little wobbly. Book
Okay.
8 is fantastic. Um,
But that's like 100 pages in a normal book to get to that point in the series, so.
yeah, and I think I don't know the publishing process, but I would not be surprised if they told Scholastic, "We're going to write a series about kids who turn to Animorphs fight aliens." Scholastic was like, "Good, give me 3 books now."
I'm sure it was like 30 in the first draft, and they just dropped it off in a U-Haul.
Yup, you might be totally right, but yeah, I was there. I didn't notice as a kid, but yeah, this one is really silly, and part of that comes from the fact that they are very, they're still very young and innocent, and they do all sorts of really stupid things that they would never ever do later in the series, like morph in the middle of the day in
Hmm.
a street.
Okay, this
Or
is. Yeah, this is also a series that's got that edgy end goal in mind when it
that's
started. But it also can't ramp things up to that
true.
degree yet. So it
That's
has to
true. I'm
like.
not confident.
Hmm?
I don't know how edgy they were planning on going, considering this or 3.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is we have all that threat and like all of the dramatic tension of the principal like coming forward
Oh,
out
I
of
thought
his
that was
possession to have this entreaty. But then it's all resolved by like Visser 3 kind of being fascinated by cats until he's attacked by like a very basic assault. So it
well,
has
and
all
he's
these
kind
elements
of
of like the
right.
high risk drama, but then the resolutions are very low danger.
Yeah, you get the sense that it's like, and we're running out of time, wrap it up. But to be fair, one thing I do really appreciate is that they're the two big battle scenes you get that are basically like your like centerpiece of every book.
Hmm.
Both of them have just really involved running away.
The
More
first and
so
second
this
books, you mean?
one. Huh?
In the first and second books,
Yes.
we're talking about. Okay.
But it's just I guess it's more so in this book than the first one, but they don't really try to fight. They're just
Yeah,
running.
and that is.
I've appreciated that in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
It
I
was like it was better than and then we kicked all their asses. We're the best. It was like, wow, they really didn't accomplish anything.
That's absolutely fair.
A
I
lot of this book is they claw a lot just to not lose ground as
Mhm.
opposed to trying to like get somewhere, which I think is cool.
It is built entirely off of the we need to stall these aliens until these other aliens show up. And that is the entire premise of the series as it's set up.
Which is kind of a nice thing. It's like our hopeless underdogs slash everymen really are
What
like they
it
have no delusions about really
Yeah.
accomplishing much of anything.
And that actually helps it to avoid falling into the trap that I despise in so much YA or just general anything really. What I hate are world ending conflicts. Everything from the YA savior teenager to a lot of superhero movies where it's always the world is at stake and the heroes need to just do this incredibly over the top thing to save the world. And that's fine in an isolated thing, but when you get into a series of, say, the Marvel movies or something like that, and the world is always at stake, it loses a lot of its meaning.
That's
When
true.
this does it, the world is at stake, but they have no way to actually, like. The premise isn't we need to ride to space to blow up the mothership and then save our families. Because that's absurd in the context of this story. It would never work.
It's a lot more we need to annoy these people and
Mhm.
distract them until the other guys can come in.
And
And
it keeps goals and stakes low in a
Mhm.
relative way so that it can be ramped up whenever it needs to be, but it's still kept in perspective. And that's something I really appreciate.
It is a
And
very small series. The downside of that, of course, is that you get half a book about them trying to catch a cat, which I can't complain too much about because I thought it was hilarious, but I can see why that would be really, really annoying.
yeah, I suppose my enthusiasm tends to lose some of its, um, or rather, my critiques lose a bit of ground when we're still talking about like a 50 book series. Because it's
Yeah.
gonna be drawn out in a similarly frustrating way.
Yes. And for the most part, it's exceedingly episodic.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's the David trilogy, which I think you are going to love, I hope. If not, it's
Okay.
long and terrible. Um, and maybe a couple other like one or two book arcs. But I think until like the last 8 or 10 books, which are just like a long slide into everything sucks and we're going to shit. For the
Mm-hmm.
most part, each book, well, that's so that I guess kids can just pick up a book, read the flavor text of like the first page and a half, get caught up, and then put it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with just individual stories when they can have their short arcs and be interesting, and that's fine. I don't want to say that I'm gonna despise 90% of the series.
It's possible.
I really hope I don't, because we're at book 2, and that's a terrible thing to see coming.
That's all right. I'll fight you. It'll be good.
I don't want to commit to months and years of misery.
Too bad. You signed up for this. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, God, I guess so. Okay, so I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the episodic nature of this series, and the fact that it's a kid's series, that feeds into this, where I know there isn't really a good answer for my question.
Okay.
Why... No, okay. What happened to that one human they saved in book 1? Because it made a point of saying that one woman who was riding on Cassie the horse's back escaped with them. And what I want to know is, what possibly could happen to that woman, short of them bringing her into the team, that does not result in her immediate death and or recapture?
I think we can safely assume she got recaptured, yeah.
But, like...
This is the beginning of the series where they still sort of have hope of making a difference.
Well, that's the thing. I'm fine with them being idealistic and failing, but it never even talks about it again. They just pat her on the back and send her on her way, when the aliens know exactly who she is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's an oversight or just, I don't know how.
I think it's an oversight.
I don't know how they would have followed up on that, because the aliens know who she is, but they don't.
Mm-hmm. Or rather, I think it was sloppy.
Yeah.
I think they really should have just had no one survive.
But we needed that little hurrah!
Nope. Just makes more problems for the series.
You're right, but
Because
I also wonder how many kids would have kept going if it was like, and we're doomed.
I don't think anyone would have really latched onto that having been a thing. Well, maybe they would have. I don't know. I'm not a child.
I don't know. Baby Casey didn't think too hard about it. Baby Casey did not think very much. That's why Baby Casey liked Twilight so much.
But it would have been like a great opportunity to bring a new character into it and like a wider storyline around it to like bring back later, but not for a kid's book, because that's, you can't seed something that early and bring it back later and expect anyone to have any idea what's going on. These are too spread out for that to work. But
yeah, it would have been nice to have even just like a throw-off line of, and it would be better, I feel like, if she'd fallen behind and there was like a maybe she escaped, and you can safely assume no, she didn't.
Or we just sent her off to Bolivia with a changed name.
I'm not sure kids have the ability to do that, but it's possible. Kids and a bird.
You know, Cassie partially morphs back, so she's a horse but with a human mouth, so the woman doesn't know what they look like. Because they can do that. They can just human mouth on a horse. I don't want to imagine it, but it's there.
Yeah.
And she says, hey, you should really change your name and get very far away.
It could work.
It could work.
Plausible. But that's last book.
That's the last book. It was something that was bothering me as I was reading this book.
Okay, that's fair. So, man.
So, first part of the book, hawk facts. Second part of the book, cat facts. That's the book.
And a lot of what kept striking me, which I don't know if it's something you'll be able to appreciate to the same extent, is how completely not prepared they are for this. Because, like, for example, the plan of just, I'm going to turn into a cat again and follow him into the basement again.
Yeah, that wasn't a good call.
That was a really awful plan.
I was really siding with the others when Rachel was like, they don't think this is a good idea, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Like, no, they're right.
No, this is a bad idea.
Rachel's unbelievably reckless. Yeah, but yeah,
I thought you were gonna say thick, because
I mean,
she's the smart, pretty athletic one, but
smart
bit of a
is
brick right there.
wrong. She, yeah, it's not that she's stupid. She's probably like, she just,
Short sighted.
she is highly aggressive and lets that get in the way
Mm-hmm.
of rational decision making.
Yeah.
She, I feel like, and to some extent, Tobias are the most like that.
Mm.
Whereas Marco and Jake are probably the coldest or more ruthless of like, let's just sit down and think about this.
Yeah, definitely Marco. Earning the Killjoy title of the early series.
I know, it's so hard. I'm like, God, I hated him this book, but it's like, I know I'm gonna like you.
It is, unfortunately, right now his only personality trait.
And
He's the
being
cheeky Killjoy, which you don't usually get as a pairing, do you?
I have no idea. I don't.
Usually it's like the funny, laid back one who just kind of goes along with whatever. And then it would be, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
I would expect Cassie to be like a bigger killjoy.
Yeah. Always going in with the, okay, guys, I think we should actually just sit this through.
Mm-hmm.
But she needs to be literally the middle of the road on everything.
Yes. She likes animals.
More than people, you say?
So I've heard.
God.
But yeah, life before they start turning into bugs is really amazing. This series would have ended in like 3 books if they didn't start turning into bugs.
Ooh. Okay, so sorry, I was just thinking about that. With weren't they having conversations before this book, of course, because he turns into a flea about like, does your brain function in the same way when you're down at animal when you're that small? But apparently, it just makes it easier, which strikes me as weird.
Well, with the flea,
Yeah.
ants are a level of horror that I cannot handle and gave baby Casey nightmares. You're going to
Okay.
enjoy when they turn into ants.
Okay. Sounds good.
It I guess comes down to the type of bug. I think it helps though that the bugs just aren't that complex in terms of not just like brain power, but there's not as much sensory input to freak them out. Like he says that
Mm-hmm.
about the flea is like you're not aware of enough to really be afraid or
I feel like that would be more horrifying and like a mental burden on the kids, though.
oh yeah, probably.
Like, you're suddenly unable to access any sensory functions.
There's warm.
How do
Warm,
you
not
still
warm.
think
I
when you don't even have like a concept of time? It's weird to
I don't
me.
know. I
And
cannot help you there. I'm
yeah,
guessing probably at least in this book, because Jake he turns into a flea and hides out on Rachel.
yeah, he does
I
that.
think probably he's like keeping up a pretty reasonable thought speak stream with Tobias
Mm-hmm.
until they're out of range, and that's then he because it's once they get in the basement, presumably out of range of Tobias, he starts talking to Rachel.
Okay.
I'd assume to an extent that conversations are what pull him through, but I'm guessing the authors didn't really think about that.
Or it wasn't convenient at the time.
Yeah.
If you don't have a book to dedicate to some horrifying thing, why worry about putting it in?
Yeah. So, man, if this book had been about fleas, it would have been. Well, I guess you can't do as much with fleas. I don't know. Okay, can we talk about how for kids who have to lie all the time, everyone except Marco is terrible at it?
Yeah.
Cassie is literally the worst liar ever. Rachel lies so bad that people can always tell when she's lying. They don't know what she's lying about, but they're suspicious enough to turn Jake into a flea.
They're just sweating
But Cassie is
horribly.
literally, I guess, of the Animorphs, I would expect her to be the worst liar, but
She would just feel bad about it. What lie are you thinking of right now?
like when she was pretending that Jake was not a flea, and then she deposits it. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
that
find like
awkward
the
pat.
bit. Oh yeah, that's like I glanced at Cassie. She smiled blandly. Something was going on with her, but I didn't have time to find out what. First off, we really could have used a couple more instances of suspicious behavior because, I mean,
Yeah.
blandly smiling. I don't entirely know what that means, but yeah. Like, be careful, Rachel, Cassie said, and then she stroked my back. I started to move away, but she kept her hand on my back for a few seconds. Then, smiling mysteriously, she stood up. It's
See,
like,
I
okay,
thought she was trying to get, like, the cat DNA, and she was gonna go in as well.
that would be an even worse plan than the one they went with.
Like, it just seemed to be because that extended touch that always happens.
hmm
That she had some plan going on there, like to run distraction. I don't know.
It's possible, though, when an animal is being acquired, they, like, get all, like, calm and spacey.
Yeah.
So, and this book is not really one for subtlety, so if that was happening, you would know about it.
It is fair, yeah.
The only thing, honestly, like I said, I was fine with the really long scene of chasing cats because I thought it was funny. Um, I enjoyed most of this book. The only thing that really bothered me, and I think this is a problem in the beginning of the series, is the Yerks are really bad at not being at blending in. Like the Chapmans are so bad at pretending to be their non-infested selves that
Oh,
they
it
like
was
make their
surreal.
daughter go into a depression and like she was screaming at Chapman and he's like ignoring her. I'm like, you have access to all of your host's memories and mannerisms and you're supposed to use those to blend in perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
You suck at this.
You have him on reference. Like, you think Chapman, the real dude, would, like, be interjecting, I really wish you'd try to help my daughter not develop a complex. Like,
And
if I'm doing this to save her life, you don't.
to be fair, I'm not sure how much the Yerk cares. Um, but
Well,
no,
child services coming down on you. It's gonna draw some
I
attention.
I liked getting to know the Chapman's Yerks, Innis and whatever. I don't think the other one got a name
No.
because you do get to see that they're not pure evil. They're just
No.
scared. They're scared because their ruler is an incompetent moron, a violent,
Yeah.
cannibalistic, incompetent moron, and
Who's
that
really bad at threats.
well. That
Like,
weird hologram graph thing, which there's no way that has not been used for like alien cyber sex. I'm just throwing it out there.
bringing up the real
That's not
problems.
what it was invented for. It was totally used for it at some point.
It probably followed the same path of the internet. Most of what it's used for is just, cybering between lieutenants. But you were saying something.
Oh, well, I like that they're not Visser 3 accepted. They're not just pure like Captain Planet villains like Mwah. It's like you kind of feel like under different circumstances you'd almost like them.
If their way of life didn't require
Yeah.
taking over the body of another living thing.
If you can tell like they don't enjoy like
Fighting someone
like
every moment?
yeah, and besides just the concern of like being able to keep their position, you can sort of tell that the Yerk is not overly enthusiastic about killing the host's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was cool. It was like
Yeah.
they're not. That is one thing the series does really well. Sometimes it struggles, at least in the beginning, with its human characters, and Visser 3 is just
Yeah.
God. Visser 3.
But it was a
But
nice touch this early in the series,
yeah,
especially.
yeah, and they're very good at making the Yerks not pure evil. They are actually they're pretty well dimensioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're just trying to survive too. And I appreciate Chapman talking about how terrible Visser 3 is. I was like, yes, you do notice. You know he's an idiot. Thank God. That doesn't fix all of my problems, but sometimes it's reassuring just to see the lampshade and be like, okay, you're aware of this.
Mm-hmm. But when I was pointing out that he's really bad at threats, what I was thinking of, like, his newest thing was, like, the imaginative, vacuum cleaner monster that just, like, sucks a yerk out or something.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, okay, even assuming in this universe that something is developed off of that strategy.
It must exist on this. It must have evolved on the same planet as the Yerks. I'm
Like,
assuming. Because why else?
okay, so Alien Anteater, I got it. Wait,
Okay.
what, isn't that a band?
Is it? No.
Wasn't
Alien Ant Farm.
Alien Ant
Did that surprisingly okay Michael Jackson cover, and then everything else sucked. Anyway, not important.
Okay, Alien Anteater, which is, I guess, their rival at the Battle of the Bands.
Right.
If a yerk dies after 3 days of not leaving its host,
hmm
what is the point of threatening someone with, like, a violent sucking experience when there's just, like, probably better ways to threaten someone? Even with pain.
If they had a way to like beam a Kandrona technically like directly into your host, they wouldn't ever have to leave. I think actually at some point they try working on that technology, but
I don't know how they got this far without having it.
Um, that will not exactly be explained. It will sort of be explained.
They'll try to tie up that plot hole.
Not really.
No.
They come up with something that is mostly character development purposes and does kind of answer the question, but it does rely on them already being able to live inside hosts.
You're being weirdly
I'm trying not
secretive
to
about
spoil
this.
anything.
And that means it's
I'm
important.
so hard not to spoil because I ruined the last time.
You did. You ruined a big one. So I'm thinking this has to be like a major situation, because otherwise you would just go forward.
I'm trying really hard not to spoil anything.
I appreciate that.
But
Okay, so this is my most recent conspiracy theory. Or conspiracy question, to follow up on the Jake is totally in love with his cousin. First off, I would like to say Rachel totally not interested in him.
Okay.
Never comes up. Like,
I was gonna say fan fiction is not helping you unless you are into the OT6. There will be 6 when
what's OT6?
So you know like an OTP?
Okay, yeah.
Which
The one true pairing.
don't know. Yes, that is like the pairing that you love.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people who think the 6 of them should just be together.
I think that those people are mistaking friendship
It is possible. Some
for...
of them are actually surprisingly good, but there's one Jake and Rachel one within that. It was
Okay.
really uncomfortable. I had to stop reading it because
But you got far enough into it to
Yes.
to get to that
of
point.
course I did.
Yeah, well, hey,
I am terrible.
we're talking about fan art later, so I'm not here to shame you.
Okay, excellent.
So my most recent like conspiracy questioning.
It's the flea part, isn't it?
No,
Really? Okay.
Rachel starts talking about like a scene from the Itchy and Scratchy show to show like the Three Stooges like sort of hijinks of violence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's phrased like that. So on the surface there, it's K.A. Applegate being like, hey there kids, I'm a hip person who knows what the Simpsons are, right?
Yeah. I didn't look at it like that, but yeah, you're right.
So that's what's happening there, because K.A. Applegate adds in a lot of those references of like games or something to try and make it hip. and
That's why they
relatable.
tried to re-release it, getting rid of all of those and making
Hmm.
them generic, and no one was here for it. We want our cheesy dated bullshit, okay?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
There's gonna be a reference to Mbop later, and when I was a kid, I was so excited.
okay, all I'm saying here is, it doesn't talk about Itchy and Scratchy like it was part of a show. It talks about it like she saw it directly on television as it was, as if it were Tom and Jerry.
Okay, I'm
So what I'm
still not
saying here
okay.
is that Animorphs takes place in the Simpsons universe.
What does that have to do with Jake and Rachel? Also,
What do you
what?
mean, Jake and Rachel?
You said Jake and Rachel, that Jake is in love with Rachel.
No, I said it's not that.
Oh,
That was my last conspiracy theory. This is a new one.
oh, I see. Okay,
Because
so
Rachel isn't in love with Jake, and I know that. So until we get back to Jake, I can't continue with that theory.
oh, see, I thought actually that this gave more more credence to your theory, considering how like he insisted on doing the most horrifying thing the Animorphs could think of at the moment, turning into a bug, so that he could keep her safe.
Yeah,
And then,
I didn't want to get into he was on her body feeding off her blood. That was...
okay, I wasn't gonna go there either. Just in terms of the level of sacrifice, especially since we don't know at this moment whether or not he'd do that for anybody.
Mhm.
God, I can't believe I'm defending your theory. It's bullshit.
All
But
we're saying is it doesn't contradict it, but
yeah,
it is clearly unreciprocated.
that is true, because she is all over Tobias.
Yeah. Her
Um,
strange hawk
Simpson.
boy.
Do you have anything else besides Itchy and Scratchy, or is that it?
I'm just saying it's
Theory,
weird,
you would not
okay?
get an A on this paper.
That she was talking about it as if it were its own thing.
That
Strange
is
phrasing.
true. It was strange phrasing. I, though it is one of the things I do really, really love. I love the stupid conversations they get into in the middle of really important scenes.
Mm-hmm. Go down their
They're
paths.
just kind of idiots, and I appreciate that. As an idiot, it just makes me so happy.
Such as in the first chapter when those like two random boys start shooting at them as birds,
Oh my gosh,
and
that,
Rachel has her line where she's like, "How dare they shoot at me? I'm an endangered species."
I thought that was funny. That whole scene, I was kind of hoping we wouldn't bring up because it's really just one of the worst. But
So that was a point where I was listening to it with text to speech, and it felt like it was about 60 pages long. It just kept going.
yeah, you get like 2 chapters for it.
And that was really why I called the beginning of this book Hawk Facts.
Yeah, though I get the sense that Applegate really, well, I don't know if it's that she really really likes birds or just that um one book in every 10 is going to be from Tobias's point of view. You're going to learn a lot about birds.
Hmm.
You're gonna
She
hear so much
knows
about
a lot
squirrels.
about birds, but
Lots. So much.
her chapter did not come close to the cat chapter, where it was clearly a cat lover talking about how cool it was to be a cat.
It made me want, like, every 8-year-old who read this wanted to be a cat. I
Like,
still want to be a cat. It sounds awesome.
I will say it was very compellingly written.
Yeah,
Sense that like
that's
so
the thing.
much
It's like,
energy and thought, and was like all of that going on. It was very convincing, and I will say that.
though you can tell these early books are just being crapped out, probably with no time, and very little
A
thought.
Stephen King cocaine binge.
Yeah, I love Stephen King too. But anyway, despite that, you can tell it's good. Like, she's a good writer. And
She is. Just it's plot structuring. That's
yeah,
inevitable with this series, that we
and
run into
honestly,
problems.
it's a lack of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where I think if instead of 54 books, like one a month or two a month or something,
Mm-hmm.
if it had been like 5 or 10 books that came out every 3 years, it would be a lot more coherent.
Even one a year.
Mm-hmm. It,
Like
yeah,
Harry Potter, it just through,
Yeah.
and not, to go back to Stephen King, like Cujo era, where he couldn't remember like
Yeah.
5 years from a like cocaine addiction. That's what the writing of this series feels like.
Yeah.
One draft, never look back.
Yes. That is what it feels like. And I do. That's why I think I said it in our first episode that this series has no, like, there's no reason it's as good as it is. Because it should be just pure garbage. And there are bits of garbage. We've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, can you imagine if Harry Potter had come out like 150 pages a month?
Well, we sort of ran into that with the series of unfortunate events, where the first half of the series was multiple books a year.
Yeah, and it was just the same book over and over again. But
It wasn't until book 6 where it really started to find its pace.
and it took longer for books to come out, and most people stopped reading,
Yeah.
which is sad. I will admit, I think Snicket is a better writer than Applegate, but
Snicket definitely did more drafts. But yes, he is. I would admit,
I'm gonna put
different
him
series,
top tier.
better writing word for word if we were to compare these series.
Absolutely.
But we have
And,
not seen Applegate
way
at
better
her
reference.
best necessarily.
What'd you say? Sorry.
We've not necessarily seen Applegate at her best, though.
No.
Because, as we've discussed, I read the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, or whatever it was, book 1. And those were pretty solidly written.
That's Aldrea, right?
Lady Hork-Bajir love interest with Andalite. That was like the
Yeah.
collapse of her race, basically, and it was very interesting.
I thought I thought the Andalite was female turned into a Hork-Bajir to be with the male Hork-Bajir.
Maybe one of them gets mind melded with Cassie later on.
Yes, that part I know.
And I don't think we gave any spoilers just because we're so confused.
Yeah, that's what happens when you read these so long ago. Um. So yes, what we're saying is, I do think if there had been a bit more time to breathe, they probably would be more consistent and probably a bit more coherent.
But you could say that of anything.
Well, yeah.
These are...
Except George R. R. Martin, you really just don't give him any more time, please.
I don't know, he could have used a lot more editing in those books.
Yes, but clearly time was not going to help that.
Honestly, it's his first draft that needs to be quickened.
Yeah, well...
That one-finger typing strategy is not really...
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay, that's totally unrelated to anything, but...
It's true. We could draw ourselves back into this book with the discussion of skank was an appropriate word to use in a middle grade series during this time.
Right? Well, to be fair, that's what made me really wonder, like, have they, like, officially decided who these were going to be marketed to?
Or is it just, was skank more casual in, like, the mid-90s?
I don't know. I have to say,
Because that was above my reading level at the time.
the gender politics of these first few books are super infuriating, and I won't get into it because I'm just the biggest social justice warrior ever, and we don't need it.
Well,
But
you're
between
with
that
me,
and
so we just...
I was just
we're on
like...
the same page.
And Rachel kept being like, I know it was stupid. I should be more careful. You're 13 years old. Like, no.
She's
none of this
expected
is
to be
your
an
fault.
adult.
Yeah, like, stop it, Rachel. Stop saying it's your fault, because fuck that. Anyway. I love the Chapmans. I didn't expect to. That is one thing we talked about in the first book was, yeah, of course they make the vice principal evil, because kids hate school. And then second book, you're like, well, no, he's not. Okay. Shit, what do we do now?
Yeah, and okay, so the scene with Rachel and the daughter, Melissa, with, you know, everyone's telling Rachel to hurry up and go, and she's like, just a bit longer, And she has that scene where where she's just describing that moment where she feels she's needed and she's trying to supply that. That was beautifully written.
I know.
And then the next bit is just so overplayed
What's
and
the next bit?
melodramatic.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, is that where with Jake the hidden flea?
I'm honestly struggling to remember because I didn't write my notes down for that. But I think it was when we start getting into when it isn't the scene and where Rachel's actually talking about like how like heartbreaking this all is, and it's like, no, Applegate, you just showed us that.
Yep. Yep,
You
yep,
don't
yep.
need to talk about it. You're doubling down way too much time on this.
That's fair. Though I do think weirdly the best parts of this book were all the things not human related. We already mentioned the Yerks. I gotta be honest, the cat bits, especially when Fluffer was in danger and like it would
Fluffer
talk about
McKitty.
Rachel was terrified. Fluffer didn't give a shit. Fluffer smelled Visser. I was like, that's hilarious. I
Yeah.
just thank you.
I think the fact that they
Good at
named the cat
inserting.
Fluffer's McKitty
Yeah.
and
Fluffer.
insisted the entire book on calling her
Yup.
Fluffer's McKitty really just helped capture how much of a counterbalance they wanted to the drama.
Yes, and that actually sometimes their drama is a little cheesy, but one thing I think Applegate
Hmm.
is actually quite good at is inserting. It's like we were talking about with the silly conversations in the middle of death scenes. It's like inserting levity into a dramatic moment that doesn't lessen the danger in any way. It doesn't like cheapen or lower the stakes,
Hmm.
but it also just gives you a moment, like a little break.
Yeah, and you need that with those extended periods of tension. You just need something to vary the emotion so things start feeling again.
hmm Especially little baby Casey was traumatized by this when she thought Jake had abandoned Rachel because little baby Casey was stupid and did not realize how like obvious it was that he didn't leave. Um,
Hmm.
little baby Casey was horrified.
Yeah. Poor little
Man,
baby Casey.
I want
So,
to read this again as little baby Casey and not see the plot twists coming because these are plot twists. They're written for like fifth graders, so
mhm.
they're telegraphed so obviously that as an adult it's a little hard to read.
It's true, and I'm usually pretty good about being able to just not think ahead at all.
Hmm.
And with movies, I can do that very well. With younger books, younger readers, that is very difficult to do. So
Yeah,
you're
well,
kind of just sneering at it as,
hmm and it's weird because I don't get the sense that the authors think their readers are stupid in any way. The
but
kinds of
sometimes they
themes and
feel the
stuff.
need to lay it on thicker than they actually do. They say things twice when once is actually more than enough. Like it does
That is
everything it needed to.
fair. Though I have to say, as a kid, I may have been too dumb to pick up on this, so maybe it was needed.
Well, I'm talking about like the emotional moments with Casey and Melissa. Not Casey.
I'm Casey. I'm not Rachel. I'm not. I'm the opposite of Rachel. With Rachel and Melissa, yeah.
Yeah, like first time did it all. I don't need like the telegraphing ahead of time that Jake actually stayed. That's fine.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Well, I think the reason they pushed the Melissa thing so hard was A, it starts foreshadowing that Rachel's gonna do stupid, reckless things based on emotion all the time. That's just what she does. And then also, I liked that, and maybe they did beat it into the ground a bit too much, but I did really enjoy that. They talk about how Rachel's manipulating her friend, and really, even though she does care, like there was one point where she was like, "Yeah, I'm only talking to this girl because for the mission," and it
Yeah.
was just like, "Yeah,
Did you think it
look
was
how
weird when
early
she
you
left that
realizing
note
the
at the end?
value." I'm sorry, what?
Did you think it was weird when she left that note at the end? Like that your dad actually loves you. And I'm like,
Talk about things that would not happen later in the series because they're so stupid and dangerous. And
like,
what if someone had seen her put it in?
and also, if I were Melissa, that would not make me feel better. Because
No,
then I
that's
would have, like, parents who suddenly hate me and a stalker.
I didn't look at it like that, but you're so right.
Like, that is only emotionally manipulative. Like,
It's
I'm
for the
peering through your windows.
yeah. And also, I wouldn't buy it. I would be
Well, yeah.
like, okay, so like, did my dad write that? Did my dad tell someone to put this note in my locker? I guess that means dad would care enough to
Yeah,
lie when he
no,
caught
no, I'm seriously saying, like, someone is watching her, they know that, like, her parents are acting, like, horribly, and then that person wants me to, like, feel better about it. Like, I wouldn't even interpret it like they're trying to make me think my dad actually loves me. I'm like, what is the angle here?
That's true.
Why are
Though
they trying to get me
again,
to lower my guard?
13.
13.
Um, she should have signed it with a paw print. Then Melissa will be terrified watching her cat all the time to see if it can write. It would be great. Melissa and Fluffer. I ship it.
And she was cuddling with the cat and she was holding me close. I'm like, oh god, it's possessed. My entire house is filled with demons.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mom, Dad, Fluffer McKitty, nothing is safe.
Okay. Also, does Melissa know that there's a secret terrifying room in her basement? Like, how did they get that there?
Maybe Dad was like making a dude lounge.
I mean, maybe, but you would. Yeah. It seems to me like there are a lot of big underground, like military things under this city that no one stumbles upon. And that's explained a little bit with the Yerk's got some higher up government people who
Mm-hmm.
just sort of wave these things away.
I
Sort
don't.
of like Sunnydale and Buffy. But
Yeah, yeah,
but
like,
also, like Sunnydale and Buffy, there is a lot of not giving a shit from the townspeople who really should know better.
it's true. And my first thought is digging underground, like, rooms and cities is very loud, even if you use lasers or something. And, like, all that dirt needs to go somewhere. So, like,
Alien
they
technology.
cleared out this massive, massive space.
Maybe Taxons built it. We learn later that Taxons can dig by just eating huge amounts of earth. Tobias will do it.
But,
It's
like,
kind of awesome and disgusting. But I guess
but
maybe
that matter needs to go somewhere.
it kind of turns into goo.
But,
I
like,
don't I don't know when the invasion started. That's part. It was really smart of them to get
yeah.
the kids in. You know, it's early enough that they haven't. It's like it's still winnable, but it's late enough that they don't have to explain how it happened. Kind of like a zombie invasion.
Hmm. That's fair.
You can't show the beginning. You just have to start
Wait,
with
everyone shows the beginning.
of a zombie invasion.
Yeah, like zombie movies are all the how did the zombie outbreak happen? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. My second point is wouldn't a massive cavern underneath the city kind of destabilize the
Alien
Earth?
technology. Don't question it.
So
It's
like
alien technology.
they coat it in
Nope,
some
nope,
glue.
nope. Alien technology.
Alien technology.
Yep.
Okay.
That really alien technology is like the magic of any fantasy universe. You're just gonna have to accept it.
Hmm. That's fair.
It answers so many questions, but not really. Alien technology is like magic in this universe.
That's fine, and I think I'm willing to leave it at that because I have continually more questions. I always have more thoughts about the implications of this world. And something we were talking about before we started this episode is, the great well of Animorphs fan art.
Oh god,
Because I found,
terrible segue into porn.
I wanted to start with the tame stuff.
Okay, sorry.
Because, when I was reading this, and we have that hugely, um,
The best scene in the book with Visser and the kitties.
yeah, like talking about how great they are.
Yeah, it's
It's,
the thing.
I almost want to call it fan service, because it's such a change in tone.
Yeah.
Just for, humor.
But at the same time, it's something you could kind of expect Visser to say. And so I considered it a pretty decent
Yeah.
way to add levity. Again, because I am just so in love with the series.
No, it's fair. It's fair. And so I immediately went to the internet reading that. And I'm like, okay, who drew art of this?
Lots
And
of
I found the DeviantArt page of Necrosis Demon, who's a very talented artist, and they have a wonderful picture of a grumpy-looking Visser 3 covered in tiny kittens.
We should link it in the thingy.
Yeah, I will actually add that as a link. I will not link all of the Andalite porn I looked up to see if it existed.
It
And
does,
those
in case you were curious.
throbbing horsecocks, which, I was wondering where the Andalite penis was.
I kind of was too. But
So,
I sort of,
centauri as they are. Go on.
well, because they're going to spend a lot of close personal time with an Andalite.
Yeah.
Starting in book 4, I'm so excited. They don't really bring that up. There are illustrations of the Andalites on some of these books. No genitals.
Yeah, I assumed
Tracks?
I assumed reasonably that it was just, the horse sheath that you get, which is kind of nondescript in many situations.
See,
You see one, you gloss over all the others.
I haven't seen enough horse genitals to really know, but I will trust you.
Well, I guess you don't get out very much then.
No,
Because
I
I've
really
seen a great many horsecocks. And almost all of them were real.
now you live a special life, Taylor.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Very, very interesting one.
So, well, if you're curious, it exists. There's
Yeah.
a decent amount of fan fiction too, not to the same extent, not nearly as fascinated with Andalites. It's almost entirely human based.
And here's what I'm wondering, because I didn't look this up. I didn't go full in depth. But the technology and some of the things that were established in this book does set up the inevitable result of half human, half morph, kinky furry sex.
Well, considering this is a children's series, they really don't go that
It's
into
off
depth
screen.
with it.
But all of the
An
science
Andalite
is
and a
there.
human will have a baby.
Okay.
But I think for the most part, I mean, biologically, they're not super compatible. Didn't someone die trying to have sex with a horse? I mean, I know Andalites
Yes.
are a little smaller, but
Maybe
I
the
don't think it's
Andalite
feasible.
morphed.
interesting.
Just because the Andalite was male, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
that
old
wouldn't.
Axe.
That would be.
Oh, no, not Axe.
Um,
Sorry, someone else.
Yeah, Axe is not legal, Casey.
Oh, most of the fanfics are actually that I found were Axe and Marco, which I totally ship all the way.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I think as long as the Andalite was a gentle lover, it could work.
That's what this episode should be called. Andalites are gentle lovers. Except Visser 3. He'll morph into something terrifying and eat you.
Casey, never bring Visser 3 into these conversations, please. But, okay, just hear me out on this, that in this book, we see not only characters stopping their morphs part. Okay, we'll use Cassie because she's the most accomplished morpher at this point.
To be fair, Cassie is special.
Yeah, okay. But she
Cassie's a freak,
is
basically.
able to stop her morphs partway through and hold it like that.
Right.
Rachel does that as well.
Oh,
And
yeah, she does.
Cassie definitely, and Rachel suggested, can control which part of them they morph at what time when
I'm
concentrating.
not sure Rachel controlled that
She
aspect.
seemed to be doing that with the elephant to a degree.
That's fair.
Because
A
she was
lot
very
of it
deliberately
is,
talking about what was changing.
though, I mean, KA loves to do that because she loves body horror.
But
I'm sorry, continue.
in that case, we can at least use Cassie by book 2 of being totally able to shift into, like, any furry ideal.
Yes.
And that troubles me. But also fascinates me to no end as this probably tapped fan art well. We just haven't dug deep enough.
You know, now I'm curious.
But it's
I
right
wish I
there under the
wasn't.
firmament.
Does it make it better or worse to know that the Andalites have a term for people like that? They're called estrines, which means that there are a significant number of Andalites that can do it too.
What, control their morphs?
Yeah.
Like that?
It's seen as an art form, which means that there are lots more possibilities.
Because porn can be an art
Sure.
It can, well, yeah. Can
You know,
be.
this book does some weird winks and nods, like the series with sex. I don't.
What do you
Mostly the
mean?
assault one for
Oh,
this book.
Okay, yeah.
I don't. I don't remember. I feel like there are others in the future, but it's just like it's really awkward. It's like when Disney makes a sex joke, and I'm just like, please stop. I'm old enough for this, but I need an adult anyway. Okay, I feel like we are getting so off track. It might be time to wrap up, unless you
so
have something else brilliant.
I just have many, many questions about this series. About the world
Yeah.
it opens.
I think some of them will be answered, not as many as you want to be answered, but
Some of them I
one-
don't actually want an answer to.
yes. Well, and one really nice thing about this series is that it is explained well enough that the things that aren't explained, you can sort of half-ass a bullshit explanation
Okay, so like
to make yourself
expanded
happy.
Star Wars universe. We're like, oh no, it totally makes sense, and this is why.
Midichlorians, yeah.
No, not that.
I haven't seen Star Wars. I just know the word
Doesn't
midichlorians.
matter. Casey, several people just went into just, I don't know.
No, they stopped listening somewhere around.
Yeah, no, especially halfway through that joke attempt, so. Seizures, Casey. Seizures.
Okay. Well, so I think overall, this was not as good as the first one. If we'd been younger, probably would have blown our minds.
Yeah.
As adults, it's a little goofy. I still found it very enjoyable. Will read again when I go through my reading all the Animorphs again binge in like 3 years. I mean, I don't skip any of them, even the really, really bad ones.
Even the really, really bad ones.
But I will
Alright.
enjoy this anyway. So that's my verdict.
It's your verdict? I would agree. There are some great high points, but the whole book does not quite
Land.
land. Yeah.
It also suffers from second book syndrome, where it's just they're setting up, but they've done the cool stuff already,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're just waiting for the next
You need
cool
some
thing
pacing.
to happen. Yeah, it's a bit filler, but it's fun filler, so I was okay with it. I feel like that's gonna be my response a lot.
Just fun filler, you know, like
I mean, that's the children's books.
a really sweet cream, like in the Twinkies. You know, it's terrible, but you can't
Harry
help.
Potter chapters 3 through like 10 of every book. Sorry.
Rough.
Shady. All right. we should wrap up.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're doing, but we should be better at it.
It's true. Don't worry. I've got time this week, and I'm gonna take the editing axe to it.
Okay, that's probably for the best.
Cut out my jokes. Just keep it straight.
There were jokes.
Well, there was the intro and then the silence. Clearly, I was not up to form.
I thought it was charming. All right. Well, thank you, anyone who is still here. I'm sorry. We're gonna get better at this. We have 52 more books to try and get better at them.
Time. We'll do some. We'll have to do like some improv activities together just to.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
well,
no, trust me.
We'll see you next time, where we're going to hang out with Tobias, who you may know is a bird. It's mentioned once or twice.